Some days you just need a pure dose of motivation, to stir your heart and to get the flame all heated up. Well, today we're going to do just that. And my guest is guaranteed that we're going to do that. Guaranteed. Now, as an ordinary man living from a wheelchair, Jeff has accomplished some extraordinary things. He played in the 2004 Olympic Games in Athens, Greece, and is a silver medalist for the USA men's wheelchair basketball team. Griff is a national champion who played for the Utah Wheelin Jazz and is a four-time All-Star MVP. He was the #1 men's wheelchair tennis player in the state of Utah, won the St. George Marathon, has 2 Guinness Book of World Records, and is the author of the award-winning book, I'm Possible, Desire, Dream, Do. He believes everyone has the power and potential to accomplish the impossible if they take the proper steps. During his 16-year career, Griffin's teaching style, humor, and personality have made him one of the most liked and sought-after teachers. He earned his master's degree in education and curriculum and created a worldwide peer-to-peer leadership program for third world countries that was recognized at the United Nations in New York City. Griff started 2 successful businesses and created a nonprofit organization called The Road to Recovery, which impacts thousands of injured vets and physically disabled persons. He is passionate about progress, enjoys mentoring youth, distributing wheelchairs to those in need, and giving hope through his humanitarian efforts. Griff married his best friend Emily, and together they have 4 beautiful children. He enjoys pizza, playing games, and exercising. Yeah, if you're going to have the pizza, you got to do the exercising. My friends, let's welcome our new friend to the program, Jeff Griffin. Jeff, it is so good to have you here this morning with us.
You know what? Thank you so much for having me, Cause. I relish this opportunity. I'm telling you right now, man. You make me sound so much better than I really am.
I doubt that because your wife wrote the intro. So if a wife writes the intro, they're 100% honest. Some publicists, they'll say all kinds of hooey, but when your wife writes the intro, it's got to be true.
Right. Absolutely. I am there 100% with you on that one.
So how are Emily and the kids?
You know what? They're doing fantastic. In fact, what's interesting here is what you may not be able to see or notice here. I am sitting down. I'm typically sitting down. If you guys don't know my backstory, I am in a wheelchair. I don't know if you caught that in the intro. I went from 6'1" to 4'7" overnight. And I was given a life sentence of never walking, standing, and moving my legs again. They gave me a 0% chance. And then other people gave me a 0% chance of having kids. They're like, it's the first function to go, last to come back. And then there was some that gave me a 0% chance of getting married, not because of my wheelchair, but just because of who I am. And I love that because not only can I get up now, but I've been married for 20 plus years to my wife. I don't know how I convinced her to say yes, but I do know how I've convinced her to stay with me these last 20 plus years. And as you mentioned, we have 4 beautiful kids, and I'm just telling you, my last name is Griffin, and Griffin is the mythical beast, half lion, half eagle. And I like to, think of myself as a mythical beast. And I try to remind my wife about that every once in a while. And she's like, Griff, you're neither mythical or a beast. And I'm like, hey, I thought at least one time, at one time I was, but absolutely. So I am excited to be here. The kids are good. The family's doing great. And I like to believe they still love me.
As we approach the end of summer, what's the word? Let's just get a Corona update from the Griffin household. Are the kids going back to school?
Oh, some of them are. Some of them want to. Some of them are like, no, don't want to go if I got to mask up. And so we'll see. They keep changing things every second, it seems like. So tomorrow may be different than a week from now, and so we've got half of them that want to go back, half of them that are thinking about staying home. They're not afraid of the coronavirus. They just don't want to wear the masks.
I understand. Yeah, who wants to be that masked man unless you're that man?
There you go.
Man. So let's get to know you a little bit more about your backstory. So in the introduction, we talked about you being on the USA men's basketball team at the Paralympics. Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's right behind my shoulder here, the USA 10. It was collecting dust. And so I'm like, what can I do to, to really, make sure that it doesn't wear off. And so I put it in a frame and it's been hanging there. But what's interesting is what people may not know here is that I was a college athlete, loved sports, loved anything to do with a ball, passionate about balls. And football, basketball, baseball, anything I could do to play. And that was my dream, was to play football in college. And so I'm going to get into that as well, because I want to share some things, some flecks of gold that I discovered throughout this journey. But after my accident, I had to pick up the pieces of my dream, and I'm like, okay, now what? So when I found out that there is wheelchair basketball and there's Paralympics, I'm like, I want to try it out. But what you may not have noticed or known before, that there is a wheelchair basketball league out there. In fact, there's 2,000 wheelchair basketball players, ranging from little peewees, juniors, to women's league, to a collegiate league, to an elite league. The most NBA teams have a wheelchair basketball team, and I play for the Wheelin Jazz. And so the Paralympics, they invite 24 players to come join them. And I was fortunate enough to come try out. 24 would get to try out, and 12 make the team. So half of us go home after 3 days. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the Athens, Greece Paralympic men's basketball team. And it was an amazing experience. I learned so many amazing principles and truths and life lessons while I was there. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. If anyone can make it to the Olympics and Paralympics, get there. In fact, this year was supposed to be one of those years in Tokyo, but of course it's been postponed. Not canceled, but postponed for next year. And I don't know about you, Kaz, but haven't you noticed how Olympic athletes make things look so simple?
Well, that's a true professional, right? They make hard things look easy. So you watch golf on TV and you're like, I could do that. And then you go out and you're like, now I understand why golf is a 4-letter word.
That's right. Absolutely. In fact, what I do is I call it finding the simplicity on the far side of complexity. And so what's interesting, if you can find that simplicity, then your world just opens up and all these opportunities start to fall into place. And so what's beautiful here is over these years and playing in the Paralympics and playing at college and then teaching for 16 years with some of the harshest critics called teenagers in high school and in college, and then working with executives where I've learned that those are even harsher critics than teenagers, but adults are just teenagers who haven't figured it out. And so what I've discovered are some flecks of gold that help us find that simplicity on the far side of complexity. And what I mean by that is whenever you've never done something, it seems impossible. I want to start my own business. I've never done it before, or I want to, go on a date, and I've never been brave enough to ask somebody in person, or whatever it might be. Whatever it is that you want to do, I want to have a relationship. Whatever your dream is, if you've never done it before, it seems impossible. And so trying to get across that divide and finding the simplicity on the far side of complexity to where you can actually get there and you're like, okay, this makes sense. I've got this. And so those athletes, right? Those athletes, as you mentioned, they make it look so easy. And so, the Olympics are on, people are swimming, people are doing all these things. And so you go out and try it. And what's interesting is the ER is full of those people who are like, I can do this. Absolutely, I can do this. And the beauty of it is
I didn't think about that. That'd be an interesting statistic, is to see what injuries happen in emergency rooms during what time of the Olympics.
Right, the X Games or the Olympics or whatever it might be. But have somebody find that ticker. But absolutely right, because you're like, they make it look so easy. And you talked about golf. My son, I think he was 10 at the time. And he saw I forgot his name, Rory McIlroy, win the one of the Opens, one of the majors, and he's like, that's what I want to do is I want to golf. He's like, I can do this. And so he gets on KSL, which is like a Craigslist here in Utah, and he finds some left-handed golf clubs. And I think this is amazing because this kind of like put him on the path that he is right now. He wants to be,
he's left-handed, right?
He is left-handed.
Or they would just cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he shows up to get his clubs, and I think they were like $25. And he's like, you know what? I'm a 10-year-old kid. My dream is to play golf. Can I get them for $10? And the guy's like, yeah, absolutely. So he's doing that, willing and dealing it. And so at least he did the first step, was to go out there and get some tools to help him accomplish this, accomplish his dreams, accomplish his desires. And then we get on the golf course and he realizes, oh my goodness, knowing what to do and doing what you know are two completely different things.
Yes, especially with golf.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did he stay with the game? Dad is the master motivator. Did you have a great little speech for him right there?
Oh, I'm telling you, man, he is tired of my one-liners.
Of course, our kids are our worst audiences. My kids have heard it all before. They're like, Dad, we've heard this story before. And it's like, yeah, but it's this audience's first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got the greatest compliment from him, though, right? He called me back. He said, hey, Dad, I just want to let you know that what you taught me growing up is 100% accurate. He's like, I didn't realize what I had until I was gone. And so I'm like, thank you, son. Can you record that? Can you say that again so I can record that?
That is a great day when they're like, geez, there was just one day and my parents were just brilliant, like overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the day it makes it all worthwhile as a parent.
It will come. Hold on, you guys. Hold on. It will come. So,
my kids are older and have flown the nest. So for you that still have children at home, there is hope. There is hope. As long as you're teaching them good things. Otherwise, they're still going to be 40 years old in their underwear in your basement. So teach them wings of responsibility, or roots of responsibility, and wings to fly now.
Yes, I love that. I love that cause. Absolutely.
What's your biggest takeaway from international travel, such as when you went to Athens? Now with Corona, there's not a lot of travel. And I believe that, I would take my kids out of school anytime to travel. Their mom had a different idea, so they didn't travel during the school year. But for me, I think traveling is the real world. So when you went to Athens that first time with the Paralympic Games, what was your biggest takeaway from international travel and being part of the Olympics?
Oh, absolutely. I got there 2 weeks before my wife and family did, before the opening ceremonies. The Paralympics happens 2 weeks after the regular Olympics. And so I was there for 2 weeks, and I wanted to go sightseeing. So we went to the Parthenon. And if you've ever been to the Parthenon, it's just stairs all the way up to the top of this rock. And I think they just barely put in the lift on the backside. And so here we are, we roll into the lift, we get up there, we get stuck halfway up, and they fix it. And then we get to the top, and we go and take a look at this. And my wife was going to show up that it was the night of the opening ceremonies. We were at the Parthenon. Things are not as accessible outside of the United States. And
no ADA.
No, not at all. In fact, I've been to Paris. That's not the greatest place to go in a wheelchair. But here I am in Athens, Greece. I'm at the Parthenon. I'm experiencing history here. And right before I go and experience history there in the Paralympics and going out there in the parade of countries, and I'm expecting a phone call from my wife. And then I get on the lift and I'm coming down, and I get stuck, and I get a phone call from my wife. And my wife, the first thing that she says is, "I lost my passport." And I'm like, "Oh no." And so that's you talk about international travel. There's going to be some things that happen. There's going to be some setbacks. There's going to be some challenges, just like life, right? And so we've got to be prepared. When the moment for performers arrive, the moment for preparation has passed. And so not only does you just got to be prepared for these challenges, and we all have challenges. We all have setbacks. And so there's just a little bit more with international travel, especially with being in a wheelchair. And so, bless my wife, she's like, I lost my passport. And fortunately, they went to the hotel, they got a phone call that they had found it. So they went back to the airport, they made it to the opening ceremonies, but be prepared for the unexpected. And
So say your little quote there one more time, because I think, that really is the key to life. About
when the moment to perform has arrived, the moment for preparation has passed. And so often, and so many people are like, you know what, I'll just figure it out when it happens. I'll just start, looking, I'll look into it and I'll prepare when the time comes. But by that time, you're screwed. You really are. If you're not prepared and you're not able to adjust in the moment, I'm going to tell you right now that we tend to go to what happens naturally. I always say that whenever the pressure is applied to individuals, whatever is inside of us comes out. And so what's interesting is fruit is true to its nature cause, and human beings are the only creation that are not true to its nature.
How so?
Meaning, when the pressure is applied with fruit, when you apply pressure to a fruit, what comes out?
Whatever the fruit is, right? Orange juice.
Absolutely. So juice comes out, right? So you're absolutely right. Juice comes out. We know juice is going to come out. Apple juice. Pineapple juice. Peach juice. And so you know exactly what's going to come out of that fruit if you apply pressure. But when pressure is applied to human beings, you have no clue what's going to come out, because we are not true to our nature, because we do not live up to our power and potential. And
is that because we're just not instinctive? Right? An animal will do certain things, but man, we get in our own way. The saboteurs start whispering in our ear, doubts and fears and different things happen. Is that your belief?
Yes.
Why we don't instinctively just do something?
Absolutely. And so what happens is we get into our way, we get into our growth, we get into our power and potential and our abilities by our programming. I call it our programming. And so what's interesting here, I don't know if you've seen this before, but when the pressure is applied, whatever we've put in comes out. And so that's why with football players, right, the defensive coordinator is going to try to, pressure the quarterback by sending some blitzes in there and some stunts and some other things to kind of just put him off his, just get him off balance. And so when pressure is applied to us as human beings, we get to see what we're made out of. And so you're talking about international travel. If you're not prepared for the for the unexpected, that pressure is going to be applied, because there's different languages that are happening. There's different customs, there's different cultures, there's different food, there's different money. There's just all these things that are coming at us, all these triggers that are coming at us. And so you can't prepare for everything, but you can plan for as much as you possibly can. And so what's interesting here is we've talked about COVID and coronavirus a couple of times here. The pressure has been applied.
Amen.
It's been applied to the nation. It's been applied to the countries. It's been applied to the states and the cities and individuals. And what's interesting is to see how people are responding, or better yet, reacting to this challenge. And so that's what I mean. That's what I mean by human beings are the only creation that are not true to its nature. Because whenever that pressure is applied, whatever comes out is what we put in. And so if we don't like the results, let's change what we put in. And so that's what I just love doing here, is just going around the world, and not just playing international sports, but to actually get around and speak to organizations and speak to events and individuals. Even though there might be 1,000 people in that room, because I try to reach the one to help them, first of all, find the simplicity on the far side of complexity, and also prepare them for their finest hour, right? And what is that finest hour? Well, we can get into that as well. I just get so excited about sharing these gold nuggets that I've discovered over these last 25 years.
Well, we like nuggets, so let's talk about some of those golden nuggets. What a great segue right there about your finest hour then. Tell us more about that.
Well, Sir Winston Churchill, back in 1941, during World War II, Sir Winston Churchill, he's talking to a group of boys at Harrow School, and he says, to every man, there comes that special moment when he is figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered a special thing unique to him and fitted to his talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds him unprepared or unqualified for the work, which would be his finest hour. And so I don't know about you, Cos, but how many times have you been tapped on the shoulder and offered a special thing and you were unprepared and unqualified? I'm looking at my social life when I was a teenager, and I don't know how many times, a beautiful young lady walks in front of my path and I was unprepared and unqualified to take take advantage of that opportunity. But again, how many times have we been tapped on the shoulder and we have not been prepared for it? In fact, one thing that I like to say is, challenges can be our greatest opportunity. But have we been prepared and are we qualified to see that challenge as an opportunity?
Yeah, that's a powerful quote. I really like that. I like that little story about Winston Churchill. He's one of my favorites. Not everything he did, but he's got some great quotes, some great wisdom that we can learn from. So what holds people back from having those great moments, though? So you talked about maybe they're not prepared, maybe they're not qualified. Mm-hmm. Is that an internal thing? Is that they just haven't done the work? What do you think really gets in our way and holds us back from more and better human performance?
Absolutely, and I love that question. Great question. In fact, I'm going to jump back to the first thing I mentioned early on here, and that is my dream to play football. Right. When I was a little kid, what's interesting here is what I've learned that people are like, success. They're like, success is, everyone has like a silver bullet for success. And what's interesting is I think success is more about a process than it is about just one simple thing. In fact, I believe that success is a 3-part series. You've got to know what you want. You've got to finish what you start, and you've got to celebrate the process. And most of us don't know what we want, but the majority of us know what we don't want, if that makes sense. And to illustrate that, I don't know if you've ever gone out with your friends where you're just like, let's go out to eat. Absolutely. What do you want to eat? Whatever you want. I don't care. It's great. And so you're like, okay, well, let's go to Italian. Let's have some Italian. Like, no, I don't want that. I'm like, well, I don't care. I'll eat whatever, but just not Italian. So I'm like, okay, how about Mexican? Yeah, you're not Mexican either. No, I don't want that either. Like, okay, well, I thought you said you didn't care what you want. And so what's interesting is most of us, we don't know what we want, but the majority of us know what we don't want. It's kind of like those three vultures.
Mind cannot concentrate on the reverse of an idea.
Right. So if you're saying
what we don't want, because we'll actually attract what we don't want faster into our life.
Absolutely. And so people are like, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be out of shape. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. But what's interesting is where the eyes go, the energy flows. And so if we're focusing on what we don't want, we're going to continue to get what we don't want. And so I have this little process called dream weaving. 10 minutes will change your life. But going back to your question on this, I wanted to play football in college, and that was the song that sang to my soul, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And people kept on telling me all the reasons why I couldn't. They're like, Griff, you can't play football in college. You're too short. You're too slow. You're too white. I'm like, okay, I absolutely.
Other than that.
Yeah. And so what's interesting here is I've learned that most people base your possibilities on their limitations.
Mm.
And the boo birds and the naysayers are out there. And so as we're growing up and when we're being raised, we're receiving this programming. We're getting this programming inside our minds here when we don't know it. We don't realize it. And the word I can't, we hear that 150,000 times by the time we're 17, compared to the words I can 5,000 times.
Wow.
And so here we have this big, huge problem here, disparity of things that we can do and things that we can't do. And fortunately for me, I didn't realize this at the time. I didn't know the concepts. And I didn't know the steps that are necessary to change your mindset and to change the mental capacity. And that's what I'm getting to is we reject what we don't understand, and we base our possibilities on what we know. And so there's the paradox that's happening here with us is if we continue to base, our possibilities on what we know and what we understand, then we're never going to get there, because we're never going to find the simplicity on the far side of complexity, because it's just impossible, right? I've never been there before. I'm just on my circle of certainty here, and I'm never going to step off. I'm never going to go into that darkness. I'm never going to discover the power and potential that I have unless I take that step into the darkness long before I ever see the end. And so we got to continue. So we got to stop rejecting what we don't understand, and we've got to stop basing our possibilities on what we know. And fortunately for me, cause the dream was so powerful, and the vision was so clear, and the song was so beautiful to me, that I continued to tap into and feel the reserves of resilience and continue to chase down my dream. And I received an invitation from the Hall of Fame All-American coach Lavelle Edwards, inviting me, the short, slow white guy, to come play for him down at BYU. And when I got to college, and again, this is a long way to your question, and that is, I was told that when I got to college, like, hey, Griff, 80% mental, 20% physical. Some people are like, hey, Griff, 80% physical, 20% mental, the 80-20 rule. And when I got there, I realized that they're both wrong. It's 100% mental. Everything we do is 100% mental. The way we prepare, the way we practice, the way we perform, the way we approach life is 100% mental. And so what we need to do here is we need to understand how to create that mindset that's going to give us the results that we want. And I call it the P squared mindset. And in fact, I want to give your listeners, I wish I would have given this to you much earlier, but I want to give your listeners that principle and this tool that is at the foundation of every solution. And what's interesting,
jump in and give it to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you guys will text the word possible, POSSIBLE, if you guys will text the word possible to 801-316-8689, I will send you the possibility principle. That's why I call it the P squared mindset, is because the possibility principle, we got 2 P's on there. But it is amazing. I'm telling you right now that if you can understand this one simple principle, it is just going to just blow your minds, and it will also just unlock the floodgates of imagination. And what it will do for you is it's going to teach you how to develop a desire that matches up with your dreams. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, where you've had conflicting desires, right? And perhaps maybe your dream's not even clear in the first place. You kind of know what you want, but then you're not quite sure if you can do it. You can start, all these doubts start to come into play. What's interesting here is we all have conflicting desires. I had a buddy of mine that was like, Griff, I think I could lose some weight if I hung out with you. I'm like, well, let's do this. He's like, no, really, I think I could lose some weight if I hung out with you. I'm like, let's do it. And in between sentences, he would take a drink from his big gulp. He's like, Griff, I really do think I could lose some weight if I hung out with you. I'm like, listen. And then he take a bite from his Twinkie. He's like, yeah, I really want to lose weight. And so I always ask the audience and the people that I'm working with here, I'm like, does my buddy really have a desire to lose weight? And so I present that question to you and the listeners. Does my buddy have a desire to lose weight?
No.
And a lot of people, and what's interesting, you get different answers, and that's okay. And I love it. Some people shake their head, some people are nodding. And I really do believe my buddy has a desire to lose weight. But what does he have a greater desire to do?
Twinkies
and big gulps. Absolutely. And so here we have this tug of war that's going on in our life and with our dreams, and we don't understand. We've never really dissect what a desire is. We've never taken a look at the workings, the working parts of the mind. And if you can understand the working parts of the mind, holy cow, it's just amazing. Because if we were able to be programmed in the first place, why can't we reprogram to what we want instead of what we're getting? And so the solution to pollution is dilution. And so going back to when the pressure is applied, what's going to come out? Well, what's going to come out is what we've put in. And so again, it's just a small little change. It's a small little change. And so some people think that this P squared mindset is this big, huge thing that they've got to do, but no, really. So if you guys go and text the word possible at 801-316-8689, you're going to get a PDF. And I'm going to invite you to do it 21 days. And what this is it's just a simple principle that that works for every challenge. And what's interesting, is we like to spend a lot of time on the problem and the challenge, but we don't spend too much time on the answers. And I believe that every problem under the sun has a solution or it has none. If there be one, hurry and find it. If there be none, never mind it. And over these last 20 years, I've discovered some flecks of gold, which is ironic that most of us kind of tend to skip over the flecks of gold looking for these gold nuggets. But if you start to gather up these flecks of gold, these flecks of truth, that eventually you're going to have a bag full of gold that's just as worth as these gold nuggets. And an experience that I had in between college seasons that hopefully we have some time to talk about as well, kind of helped me discover these flecks of gold that will help individuals develop this P squared mindset, right? And so what we've done here is we've taken these flecks of gold and we've defined them, we've refined them, and we've forged them into some gold nuggets to where people can consume and can see these gold nuggets. And I don't want to teach people what to think. I want to teach people how to think. I don't want to tell you what to think. I want to teach you how to think, so that you can have this process in place to where you can just duplicate it in all aspects of your life. And I think there's 4 basic areas in a well-balanced and aligned life to help you go further, farther, and faster with less effort. And so going back to that P squared mindset, if I can just share the 5 benefits, and if you want to jump in and stop me with any of these things and clarify some things, I'd love to do that. But with the P squared mindset is, like I mentioned before, if you have this P squared mindset, and again, like I said, 100% is mental of what we do and the results that we get. And so the P squared mindset and this process that we have helps you develop a desire that matches up with your dreams. And when that happens and you couple it with emotions, then you begin to experience the unimaginable possibilities to create. And life turns from black and white into color. And you start to hear things that you've never seen before. And I think it's Dr. Wayne Dyer that says that when you begin to change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. And life becomes beautiful. And so what's interesting is once the people that I've worked with understand these steps, there's a breakthrough, and the results just go through the roof. And I've learned that if you can get in that sweet spot, if you can find that sweet spot, as athletes talk about, or get into the zone, or get into the flow, you can do more in 6 weeks than you can do in 6 months. And so the first thing we got to do, though, is we got to know what we want. We got to be crystal clear on what we want. And so dream weaving is part of that. And then, of course, the second thing is and I mentioned the success is a 3-part series, but when we talk about success, what do most people that you talk about say is the opposite of success?
Most would say it's failure.
Right? They're like failures. And I've been taught that. Everyone else has been taught that. But I've never met anybody who has succeeded who didn't fail. And so if that's the case, what's happening here is, okay, if the opposite of success is failure and I fail, then I'll never get there. I'll never find the simplicity on the far side of complexity. I'll never get to where I want to go. So then we just throw our hands up in the air and we stop before we even get going. And so the P squared mindset teaches us that it's okay to fail. In fact, give yourself permission to fail, especially when you're learning something new at first, because failures at first are triumphs at last, as long as you just don't quit. And the problem is most of us don't even want to start because we know we're going to fail. And if we fail, then we're not going to be successful. And then if we're not successful, we're not ever going to get to where we want. And so we're like, you know what? I'm just not even going to start. And so I may be physically paralyzed, but I think most of us, if not all of us, are paralyzed from the demons of doubt, fear, and complacency.
Demons of doubt. You nailed it. And failure is a natural consequence of trying. It is the stepping stone towards success. And so we talk about this all the time on this program is fail faster. If you've got to fail a certain number of times before you get prepared or qualified for the success, then get up and get failing. Fail faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Fail forward. And so, give yourself permission to fail, but at the same time, don't hang your lack of trying on that principle, that true principle. Because there's some people who are like, yeah, I'm okay with failure now. I'm okay with failing. And that's an excuse to not even try. In fact, I believe that the opposite of success is to quit or to not even try. And so that's the second thing that the P squared mindset helps you understand, that it's okay to fail, especially when you're learning something new. Because if you understand the workings of the mind, whenever you start something new, there's going to be pushback from your programming. And like, no, this doesn't feel right. No, wait, not. This is not correct. In fact, if you'll do me a favor, cause if you'll grasp your fingers, interlock your fingers, and the listeners here, if you guys will interlock your fingers here. I love to do this because it's a simple illustration of the pushback that happens to your programming. Whenever you do something new, there's pushback. And so, I don't know, take a look at your thumbs. Whoever has their left thumb on top of their right hand, give a shout out, raise it, whatever it is. I don't know if that's you. Is that you, Cause, or is that the opposite?
Left is over right?
Yeah.
That's me.
So you're normal, right? Because that's how I do it.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with normalcy, but that's how I do it. So, again, we always base it off of, what works with what we do. And so if you'll just simply interlock your fingers the opposite, not just change the thumbs, but interlock your fingers. In fact, try going back and forth and doing that. What was the first thought that came to your mind when you changed that?
Yeah, it's just, this is foreign. This just doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. It's uncomfortable. Ugh.
It's icky, right? That's the word I always hear as well. It's icky, and you're like, ugh, all this other stuff. And so here's what's interesting. There's pushback to what is comfortable. And I know the great Dan Clark said that 90% of what we do is habitual. I think that number is even higher than that. I believe.
Appreciate that you called him the great one. No longer is it Wayne Gretzky, it's Dan Clark. I'm sure.
Yes, Wayne Gretzky, he's the great one on ice. Dan Clark, he's the great one on the stage.
That's true.
But if George Bernard Shaw is accurate, Cause, he said that 2% of the population think, 3% of the population think they think, and 95% of the population would rather die than think. And so here we have 98% of the population that don't think. And the only way for us to change that programming is to think. But when there's pushback and we don't understand the process, then we give up because it feels uncomfortable. It's icky. And another thing I do as well, and I invite you to do, is to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand and see if you can get through it without rebrushing your teeth. If you have an electric toothbrush, it doesn't work that so well. But so the third thing that comes with the P squared mindset is that you understand that it's the process and not the promise that helps us progress. But so often we focus on the promise and we abort the process, that we never progress, we never go forward, and we don't understand what's happening. And so part of the process is understanding that it's going to be okay to fail, and that there's going to be some pushback, and there's going to be some times where we fall down on our face, but we can get back up. And then, of course, the fourth one is to be comfortable being uncomfortable. As I mentioned before, being comfortable being uncomfortable. And the thing is like, listen, I always wondered why my kids hated brushing their teeth so much. And I mentioned this before, is because they're learning something new. It's not very easy. And so again, finding the simplicity on the far side of complexity, right, is a journey. And because of Google and other things, we're typically able to get the answer immediately and the results instantaneously. But this P squared mindset is going to take some time, and that's okay. It might take a lifetime, and that's okay. But if you don't begin, you'll never get there. And I love the Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever year. And the second best time to plant a tree is today. And so plant that P squared mindset, plant the seed to help develop that P squared mindset. And the last thing that the P squared mindset does for you, and I'm telling you, this is my favorite one. Angela Duckworth, in her book called Grit, says that gritty people are hopeful people. I like to think that she has it upside down, because I believe that hopeful people are gritty people. And what it means is, to me, hope is the ability to reach out to the future and grab onto your dreams and bring them back to the present in spite of your past, in spite of your failures, in spite of your setbacks, in spite of those moments where you've thrown your hands up in the air and you've quit. Because here's the beauty of it. As long as you have breath, you still have an opportunity to get back up and take the step forward and orchestrate and conduct the song that sings to your soul. And a lot of people just don't know how to do that. And so what we've done is we've developed a process, a proven process that really does actually work, that helps you develop the P squared mindset, that helps you identify what you truly want and desire. And so it helps you get crystal clear on that. And so going back to, to the success of the 3-part series, you got to know what you want. You've got to finish what you start, and you've got to celebrate the process along the way. And it's just beautiful. Life is beautiful, cause again. So if you want this possibility principle, text possible at 801-316-8689, and we will send that to you. And again, I'm just letting you know right now that it's a little invitation to ask you to write this quote with your non-dominant hand, and you're going to get pushback and you're going to hate it. But it's a reminder of this idea, these 5 things I talked about, to help you develop this P squared mindset. And it's just beautiful. I'm telling you, it's powerful and it's simple. But as the Navy SEALs told me, as I went out and trained with them in January of last year, they're like, Griff, it's simple to be a Navy SEAL. It's just not easy. And so I want to tell you guys right now that this possibility principle is simple. It's just not easy. And you're going to need some help, and you're going to need some coaching. And you're going to need to pick yourself back up. And again, I'd love to help you guys out as much as you want. Contact me, reach out to me, and we'll help you more in developing this P squared mindset. But we've got a few other things as well that I'd love to share with you to help get you on this path. But anyway, does that make sense? That P squared mindset, cause?
Totally makes sense. And I love the way you've made it simple. And as we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Brian Tracy and the things that we introduced there, it's always simple, but not easy. Mm-hmm. And I like how you're saying that simple is on the other side of complexity.
Yeah.
And everyone is chasing this elusive dream and how to get there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We know how to do this. We just follow others who have done it. The ingredients are there. We've just got to have the courage, squelch the saboteurs to do it. And then it takes work, right? That other 4-letter word like golf is work. You got to do it, right? Yes. And everybody waits until they can get it perfect, but imperfect action trumps perfect inaction every time. We just have to get out there and get bloody and try. Let's talk about your book. Let's segue for a minute and talk about your book, because in your bio, it talks about how this is one of your greatest accomplishments. You're just so proud of it. Tell us more about your book.
Absolutely. Because here's the deal, cause in 6th grade, I got a D- in English. And in high school, my high school English teacher told me straight to my face, she's like, Griff, you'll never write a comprehensive sentence. And all that was validated my freshman English class there, my freshman year in English, where I showed up on day 1, we wrote a paragraph. And then on day 2, they called 6 out of 300 to the back of the room. I was one of the 6. I'm like, hey, what'd I win? I go bounding back to the back there. And I'm like, hey, what did I win? They're like, you won a date with the remedial English teacher. I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, that's exactly why you need this. And so I struggled with English. In fact, I have a little learning disorder called dyslexia, or dyslexia for those who have no problem with it. And so this English teacher in college just changed my life. He really did. He put me on a path that helped me realize that this principle, this possibility principle, is true. That which we persist in doing becomes easier for us to do. Reading is reading, writing is writing, arithmetic is arithmetic. Picking up on girls and guys is picking up, right? And again, we might have some challenges to go along the way, but that which we persist in doing becomes easier for us to do. And so this great professor helped me realize that I can really get my message out of my mind and out on some paper to really help some people. And so I've got this book, right, called I'm Possible, that you showed there. And what was interesting here, is it almost didn't happen, right? It shouldn't have happened. And in fact, my sister, who was salutatorian at our school, she was amazing. And the same teacher that told me that I'd never write a comprehensive sentence just loved her because of her writing abilities. And so when I finished my book, my sister's like, I guess if he can, I can. And she wrote a book called Reflections in a Mud Puddle, Reflections of a Mud Puddle. And it was a beautiful book and I loved it. And so what happened here is after my Paralympic experience, I wanted to know how I got there. How did I get to the world stage? How did I get to the Paralympics in Athens, Greece, where it all originated? How did I marry somebody, right, from a wheelchair? How did I have kids when I was told I'd never have kids? How did I, graduate with a master's degree? And how did I create a third world peer-to-peer leadership program that was recognized by the United Nations? How did I get to Guinness Book of World Records? How did I become the 4-time MVP All-Star recipient? And the list goes on. How was I able to get on Cause's show? And so, but that wasn't then. But there in 2005, right after the Paralympics, I'm like, how did I get here? How did I get to college? How did I get to play 2 downs? I got to taste the sweetness of success and play 2 downs in college. It was beautiful. It was amazing. And I share a little bit of that story in my book. And so I just sat down and I looked at these fucks of gold. But here's the thing, Cause. There was a moment, right, when I fell 40 feet. I was, in between seasons, I was a painter, working for myself, not pictures, but buildings. And I was trying to earn some money because I don't care what they tell you. They don't pay enough money to play football in college. And so I'm like, what can I do to earn some money to go back and just focus on football? And so business was booming and it was great. And I was painting a barn up in Idaho, right across the border from where I was from in Cache Valley. And it was Napoleon Dynamite country in Preston, Idaho. And I'm up 40 feet. I'm on 2 levels of scaffolding. There's a 30-foot ladder on top of that. And the first time up, my buddy's holding the ladder and he's shaking and it's rattling. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe you should be up here. And he's like, but I'm like, what could go wrong? And I'm climbing up there and halfway up the ladder, I'm like, hey, Doug, we can relate this to life, step by step, precept upon precept. He's like, shut up, Griff, stop preaching to me. I'm like, okay, sorry. And I get up to the top and I wanted to get the tall parts done first. And so I lift my sprayer above my head and I pull down the lever and the paint just dribbles out. There's no pressure. So I get down on the ground, I adjust the sprayer. My buddy's able to breathe for the first time. And I go and make sure that it works, working great. So then I get back up on the scaffolding and I lift the ladder 1 notch higher. And I lean the ladder up against the barn. And halfway up, my buddy yells up to me, hey, Griff, I know how excited you are to go bungee jumping, but I want to remind you that you don't have a cord. And I'm like, shut up, Doug, stop preaching to me. And I get to the top this time, and I'm about to lift my arm, and I'm about to pull on that lever with that infamous feeling that you felt in grade school when you're leaning back on your chair and your teacher tells you not to, and you're like, yeah, what could go wrong? And you go over. I felt that feeling, and I dropped the sprayer, and I'm like, oh, shoot. And as the scaffolding ladder slipped out from underneath me and it started to create a big pile of scrap metal down below, I just instinctively jammed my thumb into that gap. to save myself because I didn't want to be a part of that mess down below. All I did was just pull my thumb out and flay the top part of my thumb off. And I'm falling down at the bottom of these loft doors. It was a 1-inch ledge. I'm like, that's my only safety latch. And so I reach out and grab onto that ledge with my fingers and I dig in with my fingernails because I don't want to be a part of that mess down below. And I was hoping that my buddy would be able to at least pick up the scaffolding, put the ladder back up there. And but the problem is the pull of gravity and the weight of my body was just too much for my fingers to handle, and so they popped off. The ledge, not my fingers. Some of you guys like, not in my hands. They're like, wow, this looks so real. Those are Star Wars hands. No, my fingers popped off the ledge and I went down. I just started scrambling and tried to work my way back to the top, and that didn't work, obviously. I don't remember doing that so much as knowing that I did when I was able to examine the paint chips and wood splinters underneath my fingernails. And so that wasn't working. So the next thought that came to my mind was stop, drop, and roll. I know it's a fire drill. I didn't land on my head, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to drop. I'm going to roll, and I'm going to break my fall. And that was my thought. And so as soon as I thought about that, I looked down to the ground to gauge myself, and I struck straight-legged. Stuck the landing perfect if I was a gymnast, but I wasn't. I was a painter. So my legs came up, my back came down, and my elbow and vertebrae exploded inside of me.
Oh my goodness.
And I crumbled to the ground. And it felt like an underground catastrophic explosion had just taken place where it coursed down my legs and my arms, down my fingertips and toes. And it was excruciating. So as I crumbled to the ground, I hit the ground, I reached down to alleviate the pain and grabbed onto my leg, and my hand could feel my leg, but my leg couldn't feel my hand. And just at that time, my buddy had recovered from his small little fall, and he comes over to me, he's like, Griff, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, I don't think you should be doing that, Doug. I remember looking up and I'm like, Doug, go call the ambulance. I think I'm paralyzed. He's like, you can't be. I'm like, no, go call the ambulance. I think I'm paralyzed. So he left me. I had just fallen 40 feet. I was lying right next to the unpainted barn. My dreams of playing football had been shattered. I didn't know exactly what had happened to my back, but I knew something terrible had happened because I couldn't roll over. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. And so, you know, my question to you and your listeners is, what do you do? What's your MO? What's your go-to? What do you naturally do when you're set with a challenge or a major setback? You know, what do you do when you're faced with a major challenge or a difficult setback? What's your MO? Do you curl in a ball? Do you lash out? Do you get angry? Do you blame everyone else? Do you run away? Do you just freeze? You know, do you fight back? What is it? Because as I mentioned before, when the pressure is presented, when we're presented with pressure, what we've put in comes out. And so at this very moment, I had a decision to make. Well, it wasn't even at this moment, but my dreams of playing football had fallen with me, had shattered, right? 40 feet, no more football, no more riding a motorcycle. Everything that I wrapped my identity up into, my physicality, was possibly gone at that moment. And you talked about this book, and there's two things that I want to share with you if I can. Do you mind if I share the results that I got from the doctor?
Please do.
So you can imagine, right? So they pick me up, they put me in an ambulance, and we head to the hospital. 3 hours later, I show up. And they couldn't take a picture there in Preston because the machine didn't work or they didn't have the capacity. So anyways, you can find out more about the story in here. But I finally get to the hospital in Ogden. 3 hours later, they take a picture of my back, and the doctor comes in with the results. And I want to share that with you because I want you just to continue to contemplate the question I asked you. What's your MO? What's your go-to emotion when pressure is applied to you? What comes out, right? And again, what comes out is what we put in. And I just want you to imagine and put yourself in this situation, because I know that some of our listeners here have been holding on with all their might, their fingertips, trying to hold on to whatever it is that they're holding on to, and they don't want to be a part of that mess. Others have just have let go because of circumstances that are uncontrolled. One thing I've learned causes that when we cut corners, it leads nowhere but down. I cut corners with that foundation, with the scaffolding, with the ladder. What was interesting is 1 degree. As I changed the angle of the ladder, just 1 degree makes all the difference, can make all the difference. And what I love to say too is that 32 degrees is the temperature to melt, and it's the temperature to freeze. It just depends on which direction you're going and which direction you're looking at. And so I just want to read you the results here and just imagine what was going through my mind at this time, because you can only imagine, right? And so the doctor came in with the results. The look on his face said it all. Jeff, he began, your L1 vertebrae has been shattered. He continued as a professional should. It exploded from the force of the fall, damaging your spinal cord. Without letting any of us respond, he finished with the diagnosis. Your T12 vertebrae is compressed as well. The silence in the room was palpable. The hum of the air vent was drowning out the noise in my head. You could almost hear everybody's heart beating out of their chest. Each word from the doctor was like a blow from a heavyweight boxer. The knockout punch came next. You're paralyzed from the waist down. The room began to circle and I almost didn't hear what came next. You'll neither walk nor move your legs again. We've scheduled a time for your surgery to repair your spine the best we can. The lights were going out and the doctor was almost finished. Do you have any questions you would like me to answer? We sat there in silence, not knowing what else to say or do. If you need anything, the doctor continued sympathetically, let me know. I'll do the best I can to help you. We said nothing. It felt like the wind had been knocked out of us. The silence was deafening as he looked at us with our mouths half open. With nothing more to say, the doctor turned and left as fast as he entered. The news was direct and clear. Your back is broken. You are paralyzed from the waist down. You will never use or move your legs again. Those statements were crystal clear and to the point. I couldn't misinterpret those comments. It was obvious at that moment my dream of playing football at BYU was over. Now, I know some of our listeners are experiencing this tragic experience, right? Where their fingers are popped off the ledge, or they've experienced a major setback or a challenge, and they're like, okay, now what? What do I do? You could only imagine the news to a 21-year-old kid that I'd never walk, never move, never play football again. And so you can only imagine, right? And people are like, Griff, have you always been this optimistic? Have you always been this positive? And the answer is no. In fact, I had a decision to make, right? I could get back up and dream new dreams, or I could continue to stay and wallow, stay down and wallow in that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity, as I called it. And guess what I did? I entered the sauna of self-pity. I did. I felt sorry for myself. I entered that sauna and I felt sorry for myself. But there was a question that changed my life that was presented to me in the hospital, that changed my life, that helped me exit that sauna of self-pity. In fact, one of the mile markers is called exiting the sauna. And exiting the sauna of self-pity. I'm telling you right now, I have never been back to that sauna. Have I had some bad days? Absolutely. Have I had some low days? Absolutely. But have I felt sorry for myself? Never. And I have not been back to that sauna of self-pity. In fact, now I look at my accident as an opportunity. Instead of a challenge, it is an opportunity. It has helped me go around the world. It's helped me play on the big stage. It has helped me go through doors that I never thought were possible to go through. And so as you have up there that ticker, I want to offer those guys who are here, who are listening, who are watching. If you go to griffinmotivation.com and go to the shop, if you go to griffinmotivation.com/shop, or just go to the shop button and you go and get my book, I will give you this book for 50% off if you use the coupon code LOVE. In fact, I've got 2 books now. One's called Endless Possibilities. If you get 2 books, we will send this to you without shipping. The shipping is going to be free. And so, 2-for-1 deal, 50% off, free shipping. I'm telling you, in my opinion, you can't beat that. But again, there's a question in here that can set you free that I'm telling you right now is amazing. And so absolutely. So jump on there right now, right? Use the coupon code LOVE, the promo code LOVE, and go to griffinmotivation.com/shop. If you get 2 books, shipping is free. That's my unabashed plug there, Kaz.
You know what? I would think twice about what you're doing if you didn't at least make the offer. So That is not anything to apologize for. We are proud of our work. We're proud of what we do in a servant heart's way, and we want to share the message with the world. And that's how you do it as an author and a speaker. Is people, God, you got to read your books and listen to what you do. So
Yeah,
that's a very generous offer. And so thank you very much for making that offer to this audience.
absolutely.
What would you like to offer as kind of the mantra for the day that our viewers and listeners can take away, regardless of what they're facing right now, whether they're at 33 degrees on their way towards a boiling point, or regardless of where they are in life? What's one more golden nugget you'd like to conclude with today?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I'd love to leave with you: that you are the solution to impossible. That you are more than you think. That you have the ability to achieve your dreams and desires. That you come from infinite intelligence. And that if you simply will create a concentrated and a consistent and resilient routine, you're going to be able to achieve your dreams. Dreams do come true if you have a definite desire and dedication to do, even while dealing with disappointments. And the beauty of it is if you failed in the past, it doesn't mean that you have to fail in the future. And you're going to fail, and that's okay. But if you've interpreted the opposite of success as failing, and if you failed in the past, it does not mean that you're going to fail in the future. And in fact, if you inch by inch is a cinch. And maybe what we can do here, Cause, is send people to a link to a video of what I just did here. Outside my door is a peak called Mount Ben Lomond. It's 9,711 feet. When I moved here, I looked out my window and saw this mountain, and I'm like, I want to climb that. And what was interesting is Everest was thought to be unclimbable. And Sir Edmund Hillary and his Sherpa Norgay Tenzing were the first ones to do it. And it's amazing how many people have done it since, because one person broke through. In fact, one of my teammates was the first male American amputees to summit Mount Everest in May of 2018. He was, in fact, the person that helped Dwayne Rock Johnson with his parts in Skyscraper, because his character had an amputee, helped him with some of those things there. And so the 4-minute mile, you're not a mile runner unless you can run it underneath 4 miles. In fact, I think it was last year or this year, there's been a marathoner who ran the marathon under 2 hours. We're breaking barriers. In fact, what we do today on a regular basis was once deemed impossible in the past. So my question to you now, right? In fact, people told Madame Curie there's no more elements to be found. She found 2 and a Nobel Prize. The Wright brothers were told that they can't control flights. Well, we can jump on a plane and get across the country in 5 hours or less. So what we do today on a regular basis was once deemed impossible in the past. So my question to you now, as I leave you, is: are you ready and willing to take the steps necessary to change your presence to improve your future? There's a casual way and a careful way. Which way are you willing to take? And so if there's anything that I can leave with you, is this: we found a way. We found a way. Inch by inch is a cinch. Yard by yard is hard. And again, what we want to do here is we want you to know that you are more than you think, that you have the ability to orchestrate and conduct the song that sings in your soul. Attitude determines altitude. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. You've heard of all those things before. And so how high do you want to fly? The decision is yours. And so anyway, you guys, I hope you reach out to me. I hope you reach out. If you want any more information, please reach me at contact@griffinmotivation.com. You can go to the website at griffinmotivation.com and go down to the bottom, contact. Love to hear from you. I'd love to send you my book to you. Would love to help teach and coach you along this path and this process, because it's beautiful. We are doing some amazing things. I just worked with a senior exec for a bank, and I came and spoke to her executive team. There were 16 people on her team. 90% of her team received a promotion and or a pay rate and a pay raise. And so now she has a new team, and she wants me to come back and share some of these things with her. And so anyway, Cause, I hope I have an opportunity to come back and share some other things with you and your audience, but perhaps maybe we can share that question that changed my life, or they can just go get the book and find out for themselves. But here's the irony. I want to leave you with this. If you guys feel paralyzed, or if you feel like you're unworthy, if you feel like that you don't have the ability, or it's just, yeah, it's easy for him, but not for me. I want you to understand that the person that changed my life, the person that asked me that question, that changed my life, was a prisoner that set me free from my prison. He was lifting weights, had an aneurysm. He was there receiving some therapy, and he asked a question that changed my life, and it's put me on a path that I'm not looking back, and I'm excited to just help get other people on there as well. And so this prisoner set me free from my prison. And so if you guys are just shackled with the chains of doubt and fear, please shirk them, shirk the shackles, get rid of them. You have the ability, you have the capacity. And in fact, it's beautiful to see it when it happens. And so Cause, thank you so much for letting me be with you and your audience. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I'm telling you, you are a great man. I've learned that every great man and woman of history is a man of service, and you are that man. So thank you so much for letting me be here with you and your audience.
It's been our pleasure, Jeff. And thank you very much for sharing your story, your inspiration, your motivation. You delivered on what we guaranteed during the introduction. It's a blessing to get to know you better. And may all of us accept that challenge today that Jeff has given us. Again, just for you that may have joined us, if you go to griffinmotivation.com and order the book, I'm Possible, and use the promo code LOVE, you'll receive 50% off. If you order both books, then shipping is absolutely free today for our viewers and listeners. Jeff, thank you so much for just who you are and what comes out of you, whether we're squeezing you or not.
Awesome. Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for letting me be here with you.
You are most welcome. It's definitely my pleasure. And thank you, everyone who's joined us today on the program. And remember, shine brightly, because someone out there needs to be guided by your light. Have a great day, everybody.